From makeup artistry to acting to editing and distribution, Sacramento Filmworks is your one-stop shop for all things filmmaking. I'm your host, Klein Moore.
And I'm your co-host, Kenesha Allen. Sit tight because up next we're going to show you why filmmaking is all about the words.
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. So that makes our next guest somewhat of a literary ninja with dozens of screenplays and stage plays under his belt.
And now he's right here in Sacramento teaching the people what he knows. We'd like to welcome Mr. Richard Broadhurst to our show. We're going to learn a little bit more about his career and about his role in the filmmaking industry.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for being here. We're excited to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, good. And just to start off, how did you get your start in writing?
Well, I started out as an actor. I lived in New York for about 20 years. And actually, what happened was I had other actors need monologues for auditions. And friends of mine came to me and said, hey, could you write me a monologue? And I said, sure, why not? Okay. So I started writing monologues. And then I thought, well, usually a monologue, you're speaking with someone. Who are you speaking to? And then I turned the monologues into plays and scenes and plays. And then it just kind of grew from there. And then I segued into writing screenplays as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your process for writing a script? From start to finish, what do you do?
That's interesting. I was talking with someone about that earlier. I usually have to have an idea, obviously. That's where it begins. And I don't write a lot initially. I spend a lot of time just making little notes, jotting down ideas. I'll spend anywhere from 6 to 7 months, and my desk will be cluttered with notes. And in fact, one day the cleaning lady came and cleaned off my desk, and I was horrified. I was like, oh no.
Right.
They were in order. I know it looked like a mess. And then once I've sort of got all the ideas together, then I sort of start working out some sort of an outline. And then I start, and usually once I start from beginning to end, I think the longest it's ever taken me to finish something is about 3 weeks.
Really?
But
that fast?
But that sounds fast, but then I also spend another 6 months rewriting all of that I did.
Sure. So as far as from a technical point of view, what are some of your tactics? So if you got a 3-week or a window that short of time, if you ever get writer's block, what do you do?
Well, I've never really suffered from writer's block. I guess I should knock on wood or something. Now I will, but I'm pretty lucky that way. I've never really had a problem with that. But usually what I do and I oftentimes will suggest it to people, if I'm stuck or if I find myself stuck, I just change something, just randomly, and that'll kind of get me off the mark. I might go, well, why does this character have to be a male? Maybe it could be a female, or
Sure.
Maybe the setting could change. And simply by making one change, sometimes that'll change the whole, get me sort of started again. So,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And so, Richard, you're also a teacher. So if you've got a student who is kind of on the fence about script writing or maybe directing and editing, what do you say to them to nudge them over the fence to go over and want to be a script writer?
Well, I don't know that I try to nudge anyone that way. I think you just have to do what you have the most passion for. If somebody really has a passion to tell a story, then that's what they should do. It's a little different depending on the form you want to write in. I started out as a playwright and still write extensively in the theater. And I think the frustration for folks who want to write screenplays is that, in fact, if you really want to write and see what you've written done the way you wrote it, don't write a screenplay.
Because they're going
to get their hands on it, and unless it's an independent film that you direct and you have control over, it's very unlikely that you'll have a chance. But if you really want to see your work done the way you want it to be done, then you might want to think about writing for the theater, because playwrights are treated much differently than screenwriters.
Okay, we're going to talk about that difference in a
Sure.
second, but you started as an actor.
I did.
One Life to Live?
Yeah, well, off and on, yes. I was a detective, so you know. But you know, the soap operas are funny because they never solve the crime because you know they have to stretch it out over a long period of time.
Absolutely.
So they would bring me back whenever there was a murder, and I was there for the murder, and that was it.
So take us through a little bit of the history. So from acting, what's some of the current things you've worked on? And I understand you've got some shows that are going to be debuting in New York.
I have I have a play that's going to be done in January. In fact, they just asked. I haven't even met the people. They just paid me and said okay. They're doing it in January. I'm not sure where. And I'm also working on a play with. I don't know if you all know John. Remember John Davidson?
Okay.
He contacted me about 2 years ago and commissioned me to write a piece about Ted Kennedy, which I've finished, and they had a reading in New York about a month ago, and they're going to have another one in January. So that hopefully that's going to be done. I don't know where. He wants to do it in New York. That could happen. And then for some reason I suddenly became popular writing these solo pieces, so I was also contacted to write a piece about Lillian Carter, which I did, and actually got a lovely note from President Carter, which was really sweet. He saw it and was very excited about it and sent me a little note. So.
And you've worked with other noted folks in the industry.
I've been lucky. Part of it really started because of when I was acting. I was in an acting class with a wonderful teacher in New York, and a lot of the folks in that class, nobody knew them at the time, but we've all remained friends. So many of those people I've continued to know and work with, like Jason Alexander's a good friend, and my favorite is pretty good friends with Ed Asner.
Okay.
And that was just random. I actually sent him a script and thought, oh, I'll never hear from him. About 2 months went by and my phone rang and I heard, Richard, this is Ed Asner, I liked your script.
All right.
So I've actually written a couple of things for Ed, which he's interested in, and also working on something with Ron Perlman.
Okay.
If you all know what's that? What was the show he was famous for? Well, I just went blank. But I know he did Beauty and the Beast, but the film that he became, what is it? Hellboy. That's it. Yes, he was Hellboy. You wouldn't recognize him with the makeup.
Sure.
Although he looks sort of like that without the makeup.
So you, on occasion, have sent a screenplay to or a script to a potential, producer or someone that might like it and get it produced. What can people in Sacramento who maybe are thinking of writing or have some work and they want exposure, kind of what's your advice to them?
Well, that always feels, I think, to people like the least logical way to get something done, but in some ways it's the easiest, not the easiest. But if you have written a script and you know of a specific actor and you think they'd be right for the script, it's much easier in some ways to get a script to an actor than it is to get it to the other folks. And most actors nowadays, actually, all of them actually, if they're big stars, have their own production companies. Okay. So if you can actually get something to an actor who happens to be,
Brad Pitt.
Well, it's funny because I grew up in Kansas, so not the only part of the story that's relevant is I've never given up being this big football fan for Kansas State University. Well, it turns out that Eric Stonestreet, who is the star of this Modern Family,
right.
He went to school there, and he's a big Kansas State fan. And I recently got in touch with him, so we may be working on something. So that's what I mean. If you can find a hook, if you know an actor and there's any way you can make any kind of contact with them through some kind of, I think part of why Ed responded to my script wasn't just because he liked it. It was also because he also grew up in Kansas, and I mentioned that, and so I think he said, "Oh, somebody I feel comfortable with."
So it's almost important to allow people to see really who you are, not just your work, but who you are as a person, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think your work is obviously important, but particularly the film business, so much of it is about connections.
Sure.
It's connections and luck.
All right.
It's really the name of the game in the film business. So.
Well, and one last question for those who are thinking of getting more information from you on, how to write or one-on-one guidance, which you do. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
They can contact me directly if they like. I have they can email me if they want.
Which is?
It's just my name plus 64 at yahoo.com.
Excellent. Or your Facebook.
Or my Facebook, either one.
Okay. Richard Broadhurst.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, folks, we'll be right back in just a little while with more from our guest, Richard Broadhurst, on Sacramento Filmworks. Sacramento Filmworks is sponsored by the Northern California Filmmakers Coalition, which provides filmmakers an opportunity to learn and network with professionals in the filmmaking industry in the Sacramento region. Join us each Wednesday at 6 p.m. at Access Sacramento, 4623 T Street, Suite A. We'll see you in the movies. And we're back on Sacramento Filmworks with our accomplished screenwriter, Richard Broadhurst. And we're going to go to Kenesha to learn more.
That's right. I'm here in our studio audience with a few of our members who have a few more questions for Mr. Richard. And our first question.
Hi, Mr. Broadhurst. My name is Camille. I have a question for the actor in you. For those of us who are kind of trying to work our way into the industry, however you want to put it, what would be your best recommendation? Demo reels, headshots, should they be mailed to someone? What do you think is the best outlet to put yourself out there?
Well, it's difficult in Sacramento because there's not access to as many people as there might be other places. But I think the best approach is to mail, and you just have to, again, it really goes back to what I was saying earlier. It helps if you know someone, because most agents, which is what every actor needs, the first thing you're going to hear, no matter what you say, no matter what you look like, no matter what you send them, is no. That's the first thing they're going to say. We're not looking right now. So you just have to kind of keep on them, and if you can use anything at all, you know somebody, you're friends with somebody. Ask your friends if they know somebody who knows somebody, just so that you have a specific person. And also, if you're sending something to an agent, make sure that you don't send it just randomly to an agent. Find out who in the office handles your type of person. If like you're a specific type, so you call the agency and you say, who do you have in the office who handles young, attractive, ethnic women? Because they have somebody for everything. And then once you get that name, you want to send that person your picture and resume with a cover letter telling them what you want. Give them a couple weeks, call them up, say, and make sure that the approach is very, like, I'm calling to make an appointment, not would you like to see me or can you see me, because that gives them an opening to say
proactive.
No. You got to be very proactive.
Excellent.
And then when they say we're not interested, you just do the whole thing over again in a month. That's really the answer. You just keep doing it.
Okay, our next studio question comes from Andre.
Hi, Mr. Broadhurst. A question for you from a writer standpoint. Writing for the stage or writing for screen, similarities and comparisons?
Well, it's actually the difference, more than similarities. If you have an idea and it's visual, you see it in your head and you see pictures, you probably have a screenplay in your head. If you have an idea and you want people talking a lot and it's very verbal, it's probably a theater piece. So the difference really is verbal versus visual. And I think that's really, you have to make that decision based on what, Now, that doesn't mean you can't cross over. I've taken, I think, 2 of my plays and turned them into screenplays. But even then, I had to open them up and try to make them more visual. But there have been cases where plays have been turned into films very successfully without changing anything. If you're familiar, or if you've ever seen 12 Angry Men, that all takes place in the jury room, and they didn't change a thing. You could go out and see the play, and you'd see the same thing.
Now, we've all got a screenplay in us, right? So what is kind of the first thing that you do when a prospective student comes to you, because you do that, you teach classes, what do you take them through to narrow that down?
Well, probably the hardest thing is in the business, it's referred to as a log line, but in simple terms, it's like if you get out the TV guide or the newspaper and you'll see a 2-sentence description of what the episode is going to be about that night. You have to somehow condense your idea into 1 or 2 sentences so I get it right away.
Your elevator speech.
Yep, you got to have that first. Something, and hopefully it's something that will just sort of grab people right away. Because if you have to spend 2 pages explaining to me what the story's about, you're in trouble. And you're certainly not going to keep anybody's interest. So I try to get people to pinpoint exactly what they want the story to be about as succinctly as they can.
Excellent.
We've got one more question here.
Good afternoon. My name is Pamela
Hi,
Gums
Pamela.
Weeks, and I'm currently working on 3 different projects, writing. One of them I'm expounding on, or pretty much going through like a second edition of a thesis project that I wrote back in 1984 for my master's project. And the second one is something that I've decided to do concerning my own life as a single parent raising 2 boys. So it's going to be something like raising 2 boys as a single parent in this community. And the third project I'm working on is God's saving grace and keeping power, something that pertains mainly to my spiritual realm. So with these 3 projects that I'm working on, what would be the best approach as far as, getting those projects going and getting it to the right people, and how should I go about, getting that taken care of?
Great. Start with number 2.
Okay.
The reason I'm saying start with number 2, and I almost always tell people this when they're first beginning, is the best way to begin is to write about the things you know the best. And obviously being a single parent, and also probably something you have a lot of passion about. So that's really the place I think to start. Start with that. And you don't have to, I think I was talking with someone earlier, you don't have to necessarily be locked into telling the story exactly the way it happened. In fact, one of my favorite things to do, because I'm sure you've all had this experience, is you've had that experience where somebody said something to you and 2 hours later you think, I wish I had said that. I wish I'd responded that way. Well, the great thing about writing a screenplay or a play is you can actually go back and do it. You can do it the way you wanted to do it, So you can take your experience and sort of expand on that experience. But you already know this. You don't have to do a lot of research, and you also have a lot of passion about it. And I think that will also help you once you do have a completed project, you'll have a lot of passion even about selling the project or trying to approach people with the project, So that's where I would start. I'd start with number 2. Okay.
Passion is key.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Sure.
Now, Richard, I have a question for you. What do you think is the single most best quality that a writer should have?
Ooh. Well, you have to be. That's a hard question. I think probably you just have to be willing to listen, particularly to other people, and you can't be so resistant. I mean, there comes a point in time when I'm writing where I just have to go, I'm sorry, that's it, I'm done. But you really want to be able to be open to the people that you trust. I would not say, don't give your screenplay or your play to your mother, because she'll love it. Give it to somebody you trust who you know will be honest with you. I think, and then you have to just listen.
Excellent. We have time for a final question.
Okay, final question. You got a question for us, Wanda?
We were speaking earlier. My name is Wanda, and it was a pleasure meeting you. And you were just kind of giving me some information about writing, just writing in general, and what that whole process is about. That's something that I've always been interested in doing, is just sitting down and writing a screenplay, coming from my own perspective. Do you have any kind of suggestions on how to get started on that? Just pulling ideas out and just writing about, just getting down and starting that whole process.
And to piggyback on that, you've offered both classes and individual one-on-one training.
Right. I actually, excuse me, I actually prefer doing the one-on-one with the writing. I teach acting as well, but I prefer with writing, I think one-on-one is much better. Because one of the things I've discovered is the problem with classes is that everybody has to find their own pace. So if I'm working with a class, one person might come in and have material every 2 weeks, and another person might take a month to get the material. So I find that kind of, difficult. But I think that really you just, again, it goes back to something that you hear something and just start writing about it. You have a passion about something. Something strikes you. Sometimes you'll get an idea, or somebody will call you up. And I had a friend call me up. It was the easiest thing I ever had to sell, and it only took one line. I had a friend of mine call me up years ago and say, "Hey, did you know there was one white baseball player in the old Negro leagues?"
So the idea is key.
I said, "Really?" I said, "Has anybody done this yet?" He said, "No." I said, "Okay, we're doing it." And we wrote a treatment for it, and we sold it to DreamWorks. We didn't get to write the script, and it's still sitting out there somewhere, but it was so easy, because when we walked in to meet with these people, that's all I had to say, Nice. It was just, the idea was, so you want that idea, something that has to grab you to excite you, first of all, and then you can go from there, I think.
Well, we'd like to thank Richard again for coming on our show. We want to thank our studio audience and the folks at home watching. But everybody stay tuned, because up next we're going to show you who's shining in our Sacramento spotlight.
If you'd like to be a member of our studio audience, to meet and greet film industry professionals, visit our website at ncfc.tv.
Welcome to the Spotlight segment of our show, where we highlight local talent. Today's guest has been in the financial industry for over 20 years, and now he's moonlighting as an actor. I'd like to welcome Mr. Randy Taylor to our show. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here, Kanisha.
Thank you. Now, you've got a bunch of projects in the works right now, right? Tell us a little bit about those.
Well, it's kind of overwhelming, because it's been happening a lot faster than I thought. I've just been trying to not listen to people telling me I couldn't do it. And what's happening is just finished something for television, a new series that's coming out called Love Triangles. So I had a small spot in that. It was really exciting. We went over to Treasure Island and filmed that. And I'm just starting in February a film I'm really excited about, because I'm going to have a chance to be an action hero. So I haven't done that before. I don't know if it'll end up being a hero or not, but I'm going to be a kind of a high-rolling, Rolls-Royce driving tough guy. And real exciting cast I'm in there with. It's the producer, Robert Parham, is also the star, has the lead role. And he is a Hall of Fame kickboxer. And I'm going to have a scene with him, or two. And it's pretty exciting. It's going to challenge me. I also have something coming up that I'm really excited about, partly because the person I'm working with will be Mamie Jean Calvert. And Mamie Jean is, I guess, a genius in her own right, because she just went down to the Los Angeles area, wrote 2 separate films, feature films. One of them was science fiction. She won Scriptwriter of the Year. 2 weeks later, goes to another festival, submits a thriller, Eyes of the Killer, and it's amazing. I saw it. Well, she told me I'm going to be in a Christmas movie next year. We're going to film it in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And that's going to be interesting for me. That I'm going to use a Southern accent. It'll be the first time. That'll be fun. Real acting. And then she's doing a project that I think is going to catch on, and it's science fiction related. And I'm going to be in the same film as Jeffrey Wiseman, who was a star in Back to the Future. So there's just,
You're busy.
One after another, you know.
You're busy.
And, yeah, I'm finally going to be a good guy. I'm going to be a police chief in another movie. So.
All right, that's awesome.
Trying to get away from the typecasting as someone that kills people or gets killed.
Okay. Understandable. So you also told me that you kind of stumbled into acting. It wasn't something that, you were necessarily looking for, but it kind of just happened, right?
It's absolutely. It's just all the stars were lined up. Because what happened is, in this new economy, a lot of us that are self-employed have been struggling for new ways to market. So I started networking. And frankly, I'm not the kind of person that had gone to a lot of cocktail parties and mixed and mingled, with new people. But I went down and decided to do some public speaking to promote my financial business. So I went to a lot of groups and as a speaker and try and help people. And then what happens, I met a fellow that was a producer, and he was also putting on the Vacaville International Film Festival. So I went there as a consumer to watch it. Got there a little early because I was excited. And what happened was I was dressed to the nines in tuxedo, and hardly anyone was there. And so there was room on the red carpet, and I went up to this attractive young lady, as an actress, and I just said, "Excuse me, do you mind? I'd really like to have a picture on the red carpet with somebody. And do you mind?" And she said, "No." Talked to her just a little bit. 3 days later, I had no idea she was a casting director, and she cast me on a TV show that was that's called I Almost Got Away with It. So it lasted 5 years, and I got in right at the tail end of that. So it's not exactly what I expected, but it's just starting to snowball because I've been working real hard at it. I'm meeting more people.
Okay, awesome. Well, we wish you much success in the future. And before we go ahead and tell the people where they can keep in contact with you or find out a little bit more about the projects you have.
Okay. Well, I can be reached directly by email, randytaylor100@hotmail.com. And I also have a Facebook page under Randy Taylor, and I answer all requests.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming to our show, Randy.
Terrific.
We truly appreciate it, and good luck to you in the future.
Thank you so much, Kenesha.
And that's our show for today. Sacramento Filmworks is brought to you by the Northern California Filmmakers Coalition in partnership with Access Sacramento. Thanks for watching. I'm Klein Moore.
And I'm Kenesha Allen, and you've been watching Sacramento Filmworks, where we show you how film works.